Dr. Schoen and I believe that the colonialist logic of racism is built upon a foundation that normalizes dehumanization, right? For BIPOC folks and white folks, this has meant that our humanity has been tied to our ability to perform whiteness in ways that made the white power structure comfortable. We were white in as much as we performed whiteness, or we were perceived as human in as much as we perform whiteness. The necessity of white performativity for BIPOC folks, or as double consciousness, as Du Bois termed it, is dehumanizing and has resulted in centuries of internalized racism. And this is why self-compassion for BIPOC folks is essential, but also self-compassion for white folks as well, because there is definitely an internalized superiority complex that needs to be dismantled. However, the response to dehumanization cannot be to dehumanize another person in kind. To do this would be to morally sanction the logic of dehumanization and leave open pathways for the oppressed to become the oppressor. But this does not liberate us from the dangers of dehumanization. Rather, becoming the oppressor further entrenches dehumanization into the racializing culture of the United States. Compassion for the other is a process of liberation from the social and moral logic of dehumanization. It's stepping out of that dehumanizing cycle. It is an anti-oppressive worldview that recognizes that our well-being as a species is profoundly interconnected. It is also a challenge, right? It is a challenge for people across the spectrum of difference, gender, sexuality, ability, race, and all other forms of difference, to see people as they truly are and not the stereotypical imagined others that we have created in our minds. Some moments of compassion for others can be easy. Consoling a crying baby, offering advice to a student who's dealing with the professor who is in, like, having struggled in school. For you all working with youth, perhaps you have a child or a young person having trouble with their parents, or a family member or something along those lines. Those moments can feel easy. Maybe even have a student come to you and say, hey, I'm experiencing this kind of racism from someone that I care about, or from a friend of mine, or from my school. Again, at this point in this process, I would say all of you probably will find it easy to extend compassion to that person. But there are moments when extending compassion to another are difficult, right? And so in this moment, I'd like to invite you to remember Harold, right, from the Whiteness Project. There are many Harolds among us, right? There are many Harolds among your peers, among your colleagues, probably in your family, maybe even your supervisors, right? And so at the same time, I'd like to invite us to think about the ways in which parts of Harold exist within us too. How much of what he said we can begin to we've been taught to think is morally okay or socially okay, right? And we have to constantly critique that way of thinking internally. But compassion for the other is possible. Compassion for someone like Harold is possible, and is the only sustainable way to create an anti-racist community. To do otherwise, to avoid being compassionate towards those whom we might call difficult others, is to leave the door open for white supremacy to rearticulate itself within our midst.